The yellow school bus rumbled to a stop in front of Brooklyn High School, its brakes hissing like a sigh of exhaustion. Students poured out in noisy clusters, backpacks slung carelessly over shoulders, laughter ringing through the crisp autumn air. At the very back of the bus, Maya Johnson sat motionless, her fingers tightening around the straps of her worn backpack. She waited until the bus emptied before standing, her movements deliberate, her dark eyes scanning the unfamiliar schoolyard through the grimy window. The brick facade of Brooklyn High loomed before her, a sprawling, red brick building with narrow, prison-like windows that reflected the overcast sky. It looked like every other school she'd attended in the last 3 years. Unremarkable. Temporary. Maya exhaled slowly, steeling herself. Just get through the year. Stay quiet. Graduate. She stepped off the bus, her sneakers hitting the pavement with a soft thud. The chatter around her dimmed for a fraction of a second as curious eyes flicked in her direction. A black girl in a sea of white faces always drew attention. Maya kept her gaze lowered, her shoulders slightly hunched, as if making herself smaller could make her invisible. She adjusted the straps of her backpack and moved toward the school's entrance, her steps measured, her breathing steady. The hallway inside was a cacophony of slamming lockers, shouted greetings, and the squeak of sneakers on linoleum. Maya navigated the chaos with practiced ease, slipping between bodies without brushing against anyone. She found her locker, number 217, and twisted the combination lock, her fingers moving automatically. Click. The locker door swung open, revealing the empty metal interior. Maya pulled out a single notebook and a pencil, then shut it again, careful not to make noise. That was when she felt it. A shift in the air. A hush spreading like a ripple through the crowd. Maya didn't turn around. She didn't need to. She could feel the presence behind her, the weight of a stare, the unspoken challenge. Then came the voice. Look at this. Fresh meat. The words were smooth, dripping with amusement. Maya turned slowly. Ashley Mitchell stood a few feet away, flanked by her 2 shadows, Brianna and Courtney. Ashley was tall, effortlessly pretty, with porcelain skin and honey blonde hair that cascaded over her shoulders in perfect waves. She wore a designer sweater and jeans that hugged her frame, her posture radiating entitlement. Her blue eyes locked onto Maya's, cold and assessing. Brianna smirked. Think she even knows how to talk. Courtney giggled, twirling a strand of dark hair around her finger. Maybe she's mute. Maya said nothing. She just looked at them, her face blank, her fingers loose at her sides. Ashley's smile sharpened. Oh, I like this one. She's got spine. She took a step closer, her perfume, something expensive and floral, washing over Maya. What's your name, new girl? Silence. Ashley's smile didn't waver, but something flickered in her eyes. Annoyance. Intrigue. Fine. Play hard to get. She leaned in, her voice dropping to a whisper meant only for Maya. But remember, this is my school, and I don't like being ignored. With that, she turned on her heel and sauntered away, her friends trailing behind her like obedient dogs. The hallway exhaled, the tension dissipating as conversations resumed. Maya didn't move for a long moment. Then, slowly, she turned back to her locker, her jaw clenched. She had known girls like Ashley before, predators who smelled weakness and pounced. But Maya wasn't weak. She was something far more dangerous. She was patient, and she knew how to fight. The bell rang, signaling the end of first period, and Maya exhaled slowly, sliding her notebook into her backpack with deliberate movements. The fluorescent lights of the classroom buzzed overhead, casting a sterile glow over the rows of empty desks. She had chosen a seat in the back corner, unobtrusive, forgotten. But even here, she could feel the weight of eyes on her. Ashley Mitchell had made sure of that. The whispers started before Maya even stepped into the hallway. That's her, the new girl. Ashley's already got her marked. Think she'll last the week. Maya kept her gaze fixed ahead, her shoulders squared, her breathing steady. She had perfected this, the art of moving through spaces without leaving a trace. But Brooklyn High wasn't like the other schools. Here, Ashley's influence was absolute, and Maya's silence had become a challenge. The hallway was a gauntlet, Brianna and Courtney leaned against the lockers, their laughter sharp as glass as Maya passed. Nice shoes, Courtney sneered, eyeing Maya's worn sneakers. Did they come free with a Happy Meal? Brianna fake gasped. Rude. Maybe she's into vintage. Maya didn't react. She didn't slow down. Then a foot shot out. Maya saw it a second too late. Her toe caught, and she stumbled, her books slipping from her grip. The hallway erupted in laughter as papers scattered across the linoleum. Ashley stood at the center of it all, her arms crossed, a smirk playing on her lips. Oops! Maya knelt, gathering her papers, her fingers steady. The laughter around her was a living thing, pulsing, hungry. She could feel the stares, the phones raised to capture her humiliation. But she didn't flinch. She didn't look up. She just stood, smoothed her papers, and walked away. Gym class the gymnasium smelled of sweat and bleach, the squeak of sneakers echoing off the high ceilings. Maya stood at the edge of the court, her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. Coach Reynolds blew his whistle. Mitchell, your team captain. Pick your squad. Ashley's grin was razor-sharp as she scanned the room. Her eyes landed on Maya. Johnson. A murmur rippled through the class. Maya stepped forward, her face blank. Ashley's smile widened. Let's see what you've got. The game was dodgeball. Ashley's team moved like wolves, circling, taunting. The first ball came fast, a direct hit to Maya's ribs. The impact knocked the air from her lungs, but she didn't make a sound. The second ball grazed her temple. The third, Maya caught it. The gym fell silent. Ashley's smirk faltered. Maya didn't throw it back. She just held the ball, her dark eyes locked on Ashley's, her silence louder than any scream. Then enough. Coach Reynolds barked. Mitchell, sit out. Johnson, you too. Ashley's face twisted in fury as Maya walked away, the unspoken message clear. I don't play your games. The cafeteria or the lunchroom was a battlefield. Maya took her usual seat in the corner, her tray balanced carefully in her hands. She didn't look up as Ashley's laughter rang out across the room, sharp and mocking. Then, a shadow fell over her table. This seat taken? Maya glanced up. A boy with tousled brown hair and a faded band t-shirt stood there, his tray wobbling in his hands. He looked nervous. No, Maya said quietly. He sat. I'm Eli. Maya nodded but didn't offer her name. Eli hesitated. Look, I saw what happened in gym. Ashley's a bitch to everyone, but you're handling it different. Maya's fingers tightened around her fork. I'm not handling anything. Eli studied her. Yeah, that's what I mean. Across the room, Ashley's voice cut through the noise. Eli's got a crush on the freak. Eli's ears turned red, but he didn't move. Maya stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. Don't, she said softly. I don't need your help. She walked away, leaving Eli staring after her, the weight of Ashley's laughter hanging in the air. The walk home, the sky was bruised purple when Maya finally left the school, her backpack slung over one shoulder. She took the long route, cutting through the empty park, the crunch of dead leaves underfoot the only sound. Then, hey, Chicago. Maya turned. Zach Mitchell leaned against a tree, his football jersey stretched over his broad shoulders. Luke Rodriguez stood beside him, grinning. Ashley says you've got a mouth problem, Zach said, cracking his knuckles. We're here to fix it. Maya didn't move. Luke lunged first. Maya sidestepped, her body moving on instinct. She didn't strike back. She just evaded. Zach's punch came next, wild, angry. Maya ducked. Fight back, bitch. Zach snarled. Maya exhaled. Then no. She turned and walked away, leaving them stunned in her wake. That night Maya's reflection stared back at her in the bathroom mirror, the fluorescent light harsh against her dark skin. A bruise was forming on her ribs, another on her temple. She pressed her fingers to the marks, her breath steady. Her father's voice echoed in her head. You don't start fights, Maya, but you finish them. She closed her eyes. Tomorrow would be worse, and she was ready. The morning light cut through Maya's bedroom window like a blade, dragging her from the restless sleep she'd finally fallen into hours before. Her ribs ached where Zach's fist had connected the day before, a deep purple bruise flowering beneath her shirt. She pressed her fingers to it, testing the pain, before rolling out of bed with a quiet exhale. Her father was already in the kitchen when she shuffled in, his broad frame filling the small space as he flipped pancakes on the stove. The smell of cinnamon and vanilla should have been comforting, but today it just made her stomach twist. "You're up early," Marcus said without turning around. His voice was steady, but Maya didn't miss the way his shoulders tensed. He'd seen the bruise last night when she thought he was asleep. Maya grabbed an apple from a fruit bowl. Didn't sleep well. The silence between them stretched, thick with everything unsaid. Finally, Marcus turned off the burner and faced her, his dark eyes scanning her face. "You want to talk about it?" "No." "Maya." "I said no, Dad." The words came out sharper than she intended. She took a breath, forcing her voice level. "I can handle it." Marcus studied her for a long moment before nodding slowly. "All right, but remember what I taught you. There's a difference between patience and suffering in silence." Maya bit into the apple, the tart juice flooding her mouth. She didn't answer. The cafeteria incident of whispers followed Maya from the moment she stepped off the bus. "That's her. Heard Zach, and Luke jumped her yesterday." She didn't even fight back. Maya kept her head down, her fingers tightening around her backpack straps. The bruise on her ribs throbbed with each step, a constant reminder of yesterday's confrontation. The cafeteria was its usual chaos when she entered, the roar of chatter and clattering trays filling the air. Maya made her way to her usual corner table, ignoring the stares burning into her back. She just sat down when the room suddenly quieted. Ashley stood in the center of the cafeteria, a tray balanced in her hands, her blue eyes locked on Maya. A slow smirk spread across her face as she started walking toward her. Maya's muscles tensed, but she didn't move. Ashley stopped just short of Maya's table, her friends fanning out behind her like a pack of wolves. "Look who decided to show up today," she purred, tilting her head. "Thought maybe we scared you off for good." Maya said nothing. She kept her eyes on her hands, folded neatly on the table in front of her. Ashley's smile tightened. She leaned forward, her perfume, something sickly sweet, washing over Maya. "What no clever comeback? No begging me to stop." She straightened, her voice rising so the entire cafeteria could hear. "Guess Chicago girls really are as weak as they say." The room erupted in laughter. Ashley's grin turned vicious. Then crash. The tray tipped, sending a flood of spaghetti and red sauce cascading over Maya's lap. The cafeteria gasped as the sticky sauce soaked into Maya's jeans, the meatballs rolling across the floor. Ashley's hand flew to her mouth in mock surprise. "Oops!" The laughter was deafening now. Maya could feel the sauce seeping through her clothes, warm and disgusting, but she didn't move, didn't react. Ashley's eyes flashed with frustration. She leaned down, her lips nearly brushing Maya's ear as she whispered, "Break already, you stupid bitch." Maya's fingers twitched against the table. Then the bell rang. Ashley straightened, her smile returning as she turned to her friends. "Guess we'll try again tomorrow." They walked away, their laughter trailing behind them. Maya sat there for a long moment, the cafeteria emptying around her. Then, slowly, she stood, the sauce dripping from her clothes onto the floor. A janitor handed her a roll of paper towels, without a word. Maya cleaned herself up in silence. The note Maya was stuffing her ruined shirt into her locker when she saw it, a folded slip of paper tucked between the metal slats. Her fingers trembled slightly as she pulled it out and unfolded it. "Meet me behind the gym after school. Unless you're too scared." No signature was needed. Maya stared at the note for a long moment before crumpling it in her fist. The confrontation the sun was beginning to set when Maya pushed open the back doors of the school, the cool autumn air biting at her skin. The empty field stretched before her, the distant sounds of the football team practicing floating on the wind. Ashley was already there, leaning against the brick wall of the gym, her arms crossed. Zach and Luke stood on either side of her, their expressions smug. A small crowd had gathered, Brianna, Courtney, and a handful of other students, their phones already out, ready to capture whatever happened next. Ashley's smile was all teeth. You actually showed up. I'm impressed. Maya stopped a few feet away, her hands loose at her sides. She said nothing. Ashley pushed off the wall, her eyes glinting. You know, I was starting to think you were brain damaged or something. But no, you're just weak. She took a step closer. My brother hit you. You take it. I humiliate you in front of the whole school. You just sit there. Another step. What's wrong with you? Maya's jaw clenched, but she remained silent. Ashley's face twisted in frustration. Fucking say something. The crowd murmured, their phones raised higher. Maya took a slow breath. Then no. Ashley froze. What? Maya lifted her head, her dark eyes meeting Ashley's for the first time. I said no. A beat of stunned silence. Then Ashley laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. Oh, now she talks. She turned to the crowd. Hear that, guys? The mute finally found her voice. The laughter that followed was loud, but Maya didn't flinch. Ashley's grin faded. She stepped forward until she was inches from Maya, her breath hot on Maya's face. You think you're tough? You think your little silent act makes you strong? She shoved Maya hard in the chest. You're nothing. Maya stumbled back a step but caught herself. Ashley shoved her again. Fight back, you coward. Another shove. Another step back. Then, Maya's back hit the wall. Ashley's eyes lit up. She drew her arm back, her fist clenched, and Maya moved. It happened so fast the crowd barely had time to gasp. 1 second, Ashley was swinging. The next, she was on the ground, clutching her wrist, her face twisted in pain. Maya stood over her breathing steady, her stance perfect. The silence was absolute. Then Zach roared and lunged. Maya sidestepped, grabbing his arm and using his own momentum to flip him onto his back. He hit the pavement with a grunt, the air rushing from his lungs. Luke charged next. Maya ducked, swept his legs out from under him, and pinned his arm behind his back in one fluid motion. He yelped, his face pressed into the concrete. The crowd was dead silent now, their phones forgotten in their hands. Maya released Luke and stepped back, her gaze sweeping over the stunned faces before landing on Ashley, who was still sprawled on the ground, her eyes wide with shock. Maya's voice was quiet but clear. I don't start fights. She turned to leave, then paused, glancing back. But I finished them. And with that, she walked away, leaving the crowd, and Ashley's reign of terror, in ruins behind her. The morning after the fight, Brooklyn High School was electric with whispers. Maya felt them the moment she stepped off the bus, the stares burning into her back, the hushed conversations that cut off as she passed. The air was thick with something new, fear. Not of Ashley anymore, but of her. She kept her head down, her fingers tightening around her backpack straps. The knuckles on her right hand were still slightly bruised from last night. The skin split in one place, where she'd landed a punch a little too hard. She flexed her hand absently, the sting a quiet reminder of what she'd done, what she'd had to do. The hallway parted for her, like she was something dangerous. And maybe she was. Ashley's absence, Ashley wasn't at school. That was the first thing Maya noticed when she walked into homeroom. Ashley's usual seat, front and center, where she could command a room, was empty. Brianna and Courtney sat huddled together a few rows back, their eyes darting to Maya before quickly looking away. Maya exhaled slowly and took her usual seat in the back corner. The whispers started immediately. Did you see what she did to Zach? Ashley's wrist is broken. I heard she's some kind of black belt. Maya tuned them out, pulling out her notebook and flipping to a blank page. She didn't write anything, just stared at the empty lines, her mind replaying last night over and over. Ashley's fist swinging toward her face, the way her body moved on instinct, the crack of bone. She clenched her jaw. She hadn't wanted to hurt anyone, but she hadn't had a choice. The teachers know by second period. It was clear the faculty had heard. Mr. Hendricks, her history teacher, kept glancing at her like she might suddenly flip his desk. Mrs. Lowell in English avoided calling on her entirely, even when Maya was the only one with her hand raised. It was Coach Reynolds who finally said something. He pulled her aside after gym, his beefy arms crossed over his chest. Heard you put Zach Mitchell on his ass. Maya didn't respond. Coach studied her for a long moment before sighing. Look, kid, I don't know what happened, but fighting on school grounds. It wasn't on school grounds, Maya said quietly. It was behind the gym. After hours. Coach's eyebrows shot up. Then, to her surprise, he snorted. Smart. He shook his head. Just keep your head down, all right? Mitchell's parents are pissed. Maya nodded. She had no intention of doing anything else. Eli's warning, she found the note in her locker before lunch. Meet me by the bleachers. Maya crumpled it in her fist, hesitating for only a second before heading outside. Eli was waiting for her, his usual laid-back demeanor replaced with something tense. He stood as she approached, running a hand through his messy brown hair. You okay? Maya blinked. That wasn't what she'd expected. Yeah. Eli exhaled, his shoulders relaxing slightly. Good. That's good. He glanced around before lowering his voice. Look, Ashley's dad called school. They're saying you assaulted her. Maya's stomach dropped. Zach's backing her up, Eli continued, saying you started it. Maya's hands curled into fists at her sides. That's not what happened. I know. Eli met her eyes. But it's their word against yours, and... He trailed off, but the meaning was clear. And they're the Mitchells. Maya looked away, her chest tight. She'd known this was a possibility. Known Ashley wouldn't just accept losing. But she hadn't expected it to happen this fast. The meeting the principal's office smelled like lemon cleaner and old books. Maya sat stiffly in the chair across from Principal Higgins, her father beside her. Marcus hadn't said much since they'd gotten the call. Just a terse, we'll handle it, before ushering her into the car. Now he sat with his arms crossed, his expression unreadable as Principal Higgins steepled his fingers on the desk. Ms. Johnson, Higgins began, his voice carefully neutral. I'm sure you're aware of why you're here. Maya nodded. Higgins sighed. Ashley Mitchell and her brother have made some very serious allegations. They claim you attacked them, unprovoked, after school yesterday. Maya's nails dug into her palms. That's bullshit. The words came from her father, his voice a low growl. Higgins held up a hand. Mr. Johnson, I understand this is difficult, but... No, you don't understand. Marcus interrupted, leaning forward. My daughter has been harassed since the day she started at this school. And now, when she finally defends herself, she's the one in trouble? Higgins' mouth tightened. There were witnesses, Mr. Johnson. Multiple students saw Maya put her hands on Ashley first. Maya's breath caught. That was a lie. She defended herself. Ashley had thrown the first punch. But who would believe her over Ashley Mitchell? The recording, it was Eli who saved her. He slipped into the office halfway through the meeting, his face pale but determined. Sir, I have something you need to see. Higgins frowned. Mr. Carter, this really isn't. Eli didn't wait for permission. He pulled out his phone and set it on the desk, tapping the screen. A video started playing. Ashley's voice rang out, sharp and clear. Fight back, you coward. The footage was shaky, but it showed everything. Ashley shoving Maya, Zach lunging at her, Maya's precise movements as she took them down. Higgins' face went slack. Eli swallowed hard. I was filming the football practice when it happened. I didn't realize what was going on until it was over. Maya stared at him. He was lying. He'd been there. He'd seen. But he'd just handed her a way out. The fallout Ashley was suspended. So were Zach and Luke. The news spread through the school like wildfire. And for the first time since Maya had arrived, the whispers weren't about her. They were about Ashley. Did you hear? She lied to the principal. My mom said the Mitchells are furious. Guess she's not so untouchable after all. Maya didn't celebrate. She just went to class, did her work, and kept her head down. But something had changed. When she walked down the hall now, people moved aside. When she sat at lunch, no one dumped food on her. And when she passed Ashley's usual table, now occupied by a group of nervous freshmen, Brianna and Courtney didn't even look at her. The new normal, it took 3 days for Ashley to come back. Maya saw her the moment she stepped off the bus. Her blonde hair pulled into a tight ponytail, her left wrist wrapped in a brace. She didn't look at Maya as she passed, her shoulders hunched, her usual swagger gone. For a second, Maya almost felt bad. Then she remembered the spaghetti, the tripping, the bruises, and she kept walking. The air in Brooklyn High had shifted. Maya felt it the moment she walked through the doors, the way conversations stuttered as she passed, the way eyes flicked to her before darting away. The school had become a different place overnight. The halls, once ruled by Ashley Mitchell's sharp laughter and cruel whispers, were now eerily quiet in her absence. But Ashley was back today, and Maya knew, deep in her bones, that this wasn't over. The return Ashley's reappearance was anything but triumphant. Gone was the confident stride, the smug smirk, the way she used to command every room she entered. Instead, she moved through the halls like a ghost, her injured wrist cradled protectively against her chest, her eyes downcast. The brace around her wrist was stark white, a glaring reminder of her humiliation. Maya saw her first in the hallway before homeroom. Ashley was at her locker, struggling to open it one-handed, her face pinched with frustration. For a brief, irrational moment, Maya considered offering to help. Then Ashley looked up. Their eyes locked. Something raw and furious flickered across Ashley's face before she schooled her features into something colder, emptier. Maya didn't look away. Ashley did. The silence the school held its breath. Everyone had expected an explosion, a screaming match, another fight something. But Ashley didn't confront Maya, didn't even look at her. She just disappeared into the background. It was unsettling. Maya had spent weeks bracing for Ashley's next move, preparing for the next attack. But this quiet retreat, it left her off balance. Eli found her at lunch, sliding into the seat across from her without asking, "You okay?" Maya poked at her food. "Why wouldn't I be?" Eli gave her a look. "You've been staring at the same fry for 5 minutes." Maya set her fork down. She hesitated, searching for the right words. "I thought it would feel different." "Different how?" "Better." Eli studied her for a long moment before sighing. "Yeah, I get that." They ate in silence for a while before Eli spoke again. "For what it's worth, I don't think she's done." Maya's stomach twisted. She didn't either. The rumors, the whispers, started 2 days later. At first, they were easy to ignore, murmurs in the hallways, snippets of conversation Maya wasn't meant to hear. But then they got louder. "I heard Maya's been in juvie. My cousin goes to her old school. She stabbed someone. She's only here because no other school would take her." Maya clenched her fists, her nails biting into her palms. She'd heard it all before. At every new school, in every new town. It never got easier. But this time, the rumors had a new edge. This time, they were Ashley's doing. The note Maya found it taped to her locker Friday morning. A single sheet of paper, folded neatly, with her name written in looping cursive. Inside, just 2 words, "You're welcome." Maya stared at it for a long moment before crumpling it in her fist. She didn't need to guess who it was from. The confrontation, she cornered Eli after school. He was at his locker, shoving books into his bag, when Maya grabbed his arm and pulled him into an empty classroom. "Did you start those rumors?" Eli blinked. "What? About me? About juvie? Did you tell people that?" Eli's face paled. "No, Maya, I wouldn't." "Then who did?" Eli hesitated. Maya's stomach dropped. "You know." Eli ran a hand through his hair, looking torn. "Look, I heard something, but tell me." Eli exhaled sharply. "Courtney told Brianna, you got expelled from your last school for fighting. That's all I know." Maya's chest tightened. Courtney, which meant Ashley. Of course. The truth, Maya didn't go home after school. Instead, she walked. The streets of Brooklyn blurred around her as she moved on autopilot, her mind racing. She'd known Ashley wouldn't just let this go. Knew she'd find another way to hurt her. But this was worse than a fistfight, because Maya couldn't fight rumors, couldn't defend herself against whispers and lies. And Ashley knew it. The breaking point, she ended up at her father's gym. Marcus was in the middle of a training session when she walked in, but one look at her face had him calling a break. He didn't ask what was wrong. He just pulled her into the ring and handed her gloves. Maya didn't speak as she taped her hands, as she slipped on the gloves, as she took her stance. Then she punched. Again. 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 Her fists flew, each hit landing with a satisfying thud against the heavy bag. Sweat dripped down her temples, her breath coming in sharp gasps. But she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Not until her arms burned and her knuckles ached and the fury inside her finally dulled to something manageable. Marcus watched her the whole time, his expression unreadable. When she finally stepped back, panting, he handed her a water bottle. "You done?" Maya wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. "No." Marcus nodded, like he'd expected that. "Good." The plan, they talked long into the night. Maya told him everything, the rumors, the note, the way Ashley was trying to destroy her reputation without ever throwing a punch. Marcus listened in silence, his face growing darker with each word. When she finished, he leaned forward, his voice low. "You know what she's doing, right?" Maya nodded. "She's making sure no one trusts me." "Worse," Marcus said. "She's making sure you're alone." The words hit like a physical blow. Because he was right. Ashley wasn't just trying to hurt her. She was trying to isolate her. The choice Maya lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling. She had two options. She could let Ashley win, let the rumors spread, let the whispers chase her out of another school. Or she could fight back, not with her fists this time, but with the truth. The morning sunlight streamed through Maya's bedroom window, casting long shadows across the floor as she sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her reflection in the mirror. The dark circles under her eyes told the story of another sleepless night, her mind racing with the echoes of whispered rumors and the weight of Ashley's silent war. She flexed her hands, the knuckles still slightly bruised from her training session with her father, and exhaled slowly. Today was the day she would end this, not with violence, but with something far more dangerous, the truth. The walk to school, the air outside was crisp, the kind of cold that bit at exposed skin and made breath visible in fleeting clouds. Maya pulled her jacket tighter around herself as she walked, her boots crunching on the frost-covered pavement. The usual stares followed her, but they were different now, less fearful, more curious. The school had become a battlefield of whispers, and Maya was tired of fighting in the shadows. Eli fell into step beside her at the corner, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. "You look like hell," he said, his breath fogging in the air. Maya didn't glance at him. "Feel like it too." Eli hesitated, then lowered his voice. "You heard the latest?" Maya's jaw tightened. "What now?" "Ashley's telling people you threatened her, that you said you'd finish what you started." Maya stopped walking. The lie was so blatant, so pathetic, that for a moment, she could only stare at Eli in disbelief. And people believe that. Eli shrugged, but the tension in his shoulders gave him away. "Does it matter? It's working." Maya clenched her fists. Ashley wasn't just trying to isolate her. She was painting Maya as the villain, rewriting the story so thoroughly that even the truth wouldn't matter. "Meet me in the library after third period," Maya said abruptly, resuming her walk. Eli blinked. "Why?" "Because I'm ending this." The library was quiet, the kind of silence that felt heavy with unspoken words. Maya sat at a corner table, a notebook open in front of her, her pen tapping in uneven rhythm against the paper. Eli slid into the chair across from her, his eyes darting around like he expected Ashley to materialize from the shelves. "What's the plan?" he asked, keeping his voice low. Maya pushed the notebook toward him. On the page was a list of names, every student Ashley had ever targeted, every person she'd humiliated or broken down. Some were crossed out, others had question marks beside them. Eli's eyebrows shot up. "What is this?" "Leverage," Maya said simply. "Ashley's been doing this for years, and no one's ever fought back." Eli's expression darkened. "You think they'll help you?" "No, but they'll help themselves." Maya reached into her bag and pulled out her phone, opening a recording app. "Courtney's next on my list. She's been Ashley's shadow since freshman year, but she's also the weakest link." Eli's eyes widened. "You're going to record her?" Maya's smile was razor thin. "I'm going to give her a choice." The confrontation. Courtney was alone in the girls' bathroom when Maya found her, her reflection pale in the flickering fluorescent light. She jumped when the door swung open, her eyes widening as Maya stepped inside and locked the door behind her. "What the hell?" Courtney started, but Maya cut her off. "I know you spread those rumors." Courtney's mouth snapped shut. For a moment, she looked genuinely afraid, then her expression hardened. "You can't prove that." Maya leaned against the sink, her posture deliberately relaxed. "I don't need to, because I'm not here to fight you, Courtney. I'm here to ask you a question." Courtney hesitated. "What? Do you like being Ashley's puppet?" The words hung in the air, sharp and deliberate. Courtney's face flushed, her hands tightening around the edge of the sink. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I?" Maya tilted her head. "You've spent 3 years doing whatever she says, laughing when she tells you to laugh, tearing people down so she can feel powerful. But what happens when she's done with you?" Courtney's breath hitched. Maya pressed on, her voice low and steady. "Ashley doesn't have friends. She has tools. And when she's done using them, she throws them away." She paused. "Just ask Brianna." Courtney's eyes flickered with something unreadable. "Brianna's still. Brianna hasn't spoken to Ashley in a week," Maya said, "because Ashley blamed her for the fight, for losing." She took a step closer. "You're next, Courtney. And when she's done with you, who's going to be left?" For a long moment, Courtney didn't move. Then, slowly, her shoulders slumped. "What do you want?" Maya pulled out her phone and set it on the counter between them, the recording app still running. The truth. The recording. The bell for fourth period rang, but neither of them moved. Courtney stared at the phone like it was a live wire, her hands trembling slightly. "You're bluffing," she whispered. Maya didn't blink. "Try me." Courtney swallowed hard. Then, in a voice so quiet Maya had to lean in to hear, she said, "Ashley made me do it. The rumors, the notes, all of it. She said if I didn't help, she'd turn everyone against me too." Maya's chest tightened. "Why?" Courtney laughed, a brittle, broken sound. "Because she hates you. Because you didn't break." She looked up, her eyes glassy. No one's ever stood up to her before. Maya held her gaze. "They will now." The fallout. Maya didn't go to fourth period. Instead, she sat in the empty auditorium, her phone clutched in her hands, the weight of Courtney's confession pressing against her ribs. It wasn't enough, not yet, but it was a start. Eli found her there, his face pale. "What did you do?" Maya didn't look up. "What I had to." Eli exhaled sharply. "Ashley's freaking out. She just cornered Courtney in the hallway, screaming about betrayal." "Good. Let her unravel." Maya stood, slipping her phone into her pocket. "Where is she now?" Eli hesitated. "Principal's office. Her dad's here." Of course he was. Maya's lips curled into a humorless smile. Perfect. The reckoning Principal Higgins' office was crowded when Maya pushed the door open. Ashley sat stiffly in one chair, her father, a tall, broad-shouldered man with the same cold blue eyes, looming behind her. Courtney was there too, her face streaked with tears, while Higgins rubbed his temples like he was fighting off a migraine. All eyes turned to Maya as she stepped inside. Ashley's face twisted with fury. "You!" Maya didn't give her the chance to finish. She pulled out her phone and set it on Higgins' desk, the recording already queued up. "I think you need to hear this." The room fell silent as Courtney's voice filled the air, shaky but clear. "Ashley made me do it. The rumors, the notes, all of it." Ashley shot to her feet. "That's a lie. Enough." The word came not from Higgins, but from Ashley's father. His face was like stone as he turned to his daughter. "Is this true?" Ashley opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time since Maya had met her, Ashley Mitchell looked small. Higgins exhaled sharply. "Ashley, given the evidence." "I don't care about evidence," Mr. Mitchell snapped. He grabbed Ashley's arm, his grip tight enough to make her wince. "We're leaving." And just like that, Ashley was gone. The aftermath, the news spread faster than Maya expected. By the end of the day, everyone knew Ashley had been caught, exposed, beaten. Not by fists, but by the one thing she'd never accounted for: the truth. Maya walked through the halls with her head high, the whispers now trailing behind her like shadows. But they were different now, laced with something like respect. Eli fell into step beside her as she left the building, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the pavement. So what now? Maya tilted her face toward the light, breathing in the crisp air. Now, she said quietly, I graduate. And for the first time in a long time, she believed it.